I'd like to call the Metro Council meeting of April 10th, 2025 to order. Georgia, will you please call the roll?
Counselor Rosenthal,
Present.
Counselor Gonzalez,
Good morning, Present.
Counselor Lewis,
Present.
Counselor Wong,
Present.
Counselor Nolan is excused, as is Counselor Simpson, and Council President Peterson.
Here, thank you. We have a quorum. All right, I will now open, don't we need to do the safety video?
Yes.
Yes, let's do the safety video for our attendees.
I'm Micah Reese, and I'm the Dive Safety Officer here at the Oregon Zoo, and safety is a big part of my job. Some of the things we consider here is diver safety. I'm out here at the Oregon Zoo, and you're at the Metro Regional Center. The council chamber is located on the 3rd floor of this building. In the event of fire or fire alarm, please exit through the door in the northeast corner of the room, go down the steps to the 2nd floor, and exit through the main entrance by the reception desk and gather in the courtyard outside the entrance. In the event of a medical or fire emergency, please call 911 and notify the security agent at the front desk. The nearest defibrillator is mounted on the steps leading from the reception desk down to Grand Avenue. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. I will now open public communications on non-agenda items. Georgia, will you please describe to the audience our procedures that we will use for public communications?
Absolutely, and Council President Peterson, for the record, Counselor Nolan has joined us. If you are testifying in person, please sign up by filling out a blue card in the back of the room and bringing it up to me for non-agenda items. Public testimony will be limited to 3 minutes. I will manage timer to go off at the 3-minute mark. If you have not already signed up to speak, you can do so now. You can sign up to testify by raising your hand on Zoom. Depending on your version of Zoom, the raise hand function has its own tab or is located within the reactions tab. Those calling in can raise their hands by dialing *9. I will promote you to a full panelist when it is your turn to testify. I will call on your name or phone number when it is your turn to testify, and a window will appear asking you to accept being promoted to a panelist. Once you click to accept, your Zoom window will close for just a brief moment before you rejoin as a panelist, where you will be able to turn on your camera if you like. As a reminder, you do not need to give your physical address. However, please introduce yourself for the record before testifying. And Council President Peterson, we do have one person who has signed up to testify in advance. Kate Mura. I'm not seeing them on Zoom, but if they're in person, please come up. And if I'm not seeing you on Zoom, please raise your hand. Maybe you have a different name. I am not seeing them.
All right, seeing no hands raised on line and no one running forward, we will close out public communication on non-agenda items and move on to the consent agenda. Councilors, we have 3 items on the consent agenda today. Resolution number 25-5480 for the purpose of confirming the reappointment of 1 member and appointment of 1 new member to Metro Audit Committee. The consideration of the February 27th and March 4th, 2025 council meeting minutes. Do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
I'll move consent.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved by Councilor Lewis and seconded by Councilor Gonzalez. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion passes. Thank you. Councilors, we have 1 resolution today before us, and it is an amazing moment in the history of the zoo. Resolution number 25-5474 for the purpose of approving the purchase of certain real property in Washington Park for use by the Oregon Zoo. As we all know and appreciate, the Oregon Zoo is located in the midst of Portland's scenic Washington Park. This beautiful setting also means that the zoo is landlocked with limited opportunity for expansion. The former Children's Museum property located adjacent to the zoo offers the opportunity to expand the zoo's current campus and upgrade levels of service for the public. Here with us to describe the proposal is Heidi Runn, our Oregon Zoo Director, and Yuptal Pasi, Deputy Director.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Fellow Metro councilors, it's an exciting day for us, and I'm looking forward to helping to proceed and move the zoo forward. Our last bond transformed about 40% of the campus, and the results have been enjoyed by so many, and I think we're all seeing that today with Baby Tulatu with Elephant Lands. But next slide, please. Now we're looking ahead. The 2024 bond and the new Oregon Zoo campus plan is about continuing that evolution, about building on everything we've learned and achieved so far. Over the past 65 years, we've grown tremendously. We've built larger, more enriching habitats and upgraded our facilities to reflect the highest standards of animal care, but there's been one major limitation always, and that is space. One opportunity we're really excited about it is a possibility to purchase the 3.4-acre former Children's Museum property located just across Southwest Knights Boulevard. This could give us the flexibility we need to support the next phase of our growth. For example, we could move some of our administrative and support services across the street, freeing up space inside the zoo for more animal care, more visitor amenities, and more educational programming. If the timing works out, we could use the site as a temporary staging area during construction on upcoming projects like Coastal Shores, which would reduce the disruptions to our guests. Next slide, please. We are incredibly thankful to the Portland Parks and Rec Department and the City of Portland for this incredible opportunity, and we're excited about what this property could mean, not just for the zoo, but Washington Park and our whole community. It supports our mission of wildlife conservation and enhances the educational and recreational experiences we offer to people of all ages. Zoos, by their very nature, are hopeful institutions. Every day, we get to share stories of resilience, adaptation, and the role each of us can play in creating a better world for wildlife. We believe by working together, we can shape a more sustainable, compassionate future for animals, for people, and the planet. Next slide. This opportunity allows us to imagine something bigger, to think creatively, to keep growing in ways that benefit the animals in our care and the people we serve. Thank you for your time and for your continued support in making the Oregon Zoo a place of inspiration, learning, and hope for generations to come. We're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Counselors, any questions? Comments?
Always.
Counselor Lewis, then Counselor Gonzalez.
Sure, thank you so much. This is a really exciting day, as you noted. Never have I been so delighted to see an opportunity to acquire a building with so many challenges. So I think it's important to be really clear about the state that the property is in, but also that this is kind of a one-time only opportunity based on the geography of the area and how important it is that we see this expansion as an opportunity to supplement our campus plan, which we were extremely thoughtful in. And, you know, we engaged over 1,000 people. We had charrettes for over a year. And we didn't know at the time that this opportunity would present itself, but it really does make possible both being a great place to visit, a great place to take care of animals and really implement species survival programs that are keeping animals in the Northwest and around the world alive, but then also a good place to work. Those of us that have had the opportunity to go behind the scenes at the zoo know how cramped those spaces are because we prioritize our visitor experience and our habitats. So thinking about what it means to work at a zoo and to be part of this workforce, the expansion area is so critical. I fully support this. I think not only you and your executive team, but also the Oregon Zoo Foundation, several of whom had members who were thought leaders on this when the opportunity became available. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Gonzalez.
Thanks. I couldn't say any better than what Counselor Lewis just shared. And if I were to add my own thoughts here, just what a remarkable opportunity to build on the mission of the zoo and the caretakers and the team that live that mission every single day to and also what an opportunity for the 1 million+ people that visit the zoo to just have this here. And so I think that this opportunity is a result of also incredible leadership and some smart financial planning that has prepared us for this opportunity and just this window to even be able to plan on it and to execute. So I want to really thank you, Heidi, and your team, and all of the Metro staff that have worked on that, and also appreciate the work on the side of the City of Portland to work with us on negotiating and creating this, again, this opportunity to come before us. So I'm thrilled for it, and I know that there's still a lot of work to do to engage, to find the resources to take that to the next level. But as Councilor Lewis mentioned, with such a landlocked area, it's not every day that we get a window here to add capacity. So look forward to the next steps, and thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Wong.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm really excited for this opportunity. I think it makes a lot of sense. I did have a question around the lease back to the city of Portland, and I'm wondering how that came about, and I guess what is the city using for space now if we're going to be leasing 1,800 square feet of office space and 6 parking spots back to them?
Sure. This came about during our negotiation period. The city does have staff that supports Washington Park that's distributed around the park at different locations. So this gives them the opportunity to bring everyone together, as well as park some park maintenance vehicles, snow equipment stuff when the right appropriate time comes in for better service, to the entire park.
I will add that we rely on those folks as well to create access to the park. So equipment storage and staff access from the city of Portland to keep the park functioning.
So that seems like a win-win situation
Yes,
in the future.
yes.
Great, thank you.
Great. Seeing no other hands raised, I will call for a motion on resolution number 25-5474.
I'll move 255474.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Lewis and seconded by Councilor Rosenthal. Is there any further discussion, councilors? Besides a woohoo? All right, Georgia, will you please call the roll?
Counselor Nolan?
Yes.
Counselor Rosenthal?
Yes.
Counselor Gonzalez?
Aye.
Counselor Wong?
Aye.
Counselor Lewis?
Aye.
And Council President Peterson.
Aye, the motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Look forward to the next steps. All right, we are going to move on to presentations today. Our first presentation is for the FY 2025-26 proposed budget. Our Chief Operating Officer, Marisa Madrigal, in her capacity as Metro's Budget Officer, will present the proposed budget, along with Brian Kennedy, our Chief Financial Officer, and Metro Auditor Bryven Evans. I now need to convene the Budget Committee. Georgia, will you please read the accompanying resolution number 25-5482 into the record by title only?
Resolution number 25-5482 for the purpose of approving the fiscal year 2025-26 budget, setting property tax levies, and transmitting the approved budget to the Multnomah County Tax Supervising and Conservation Commission.
Thank you. Kick it off.
Thank you, President Peterson. Good morning, Council. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. It is a great privilege and responsibility to be before you today with Metro's Chief Financial Officer, Brian Kennedy, presenting the fiscal year 25-26 proposed budget. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that last week, some of our valued colleagues received notices of layoff because of the decisions reflected in the proposal before you. While layoffs are not the only story that needs to be told for you to understand the contours of this document, it is the most difficult one. At the end of the day, this document isn't just words and numbers, it's a reflection of the work that over 1,000 people contribute to every day on behalf of our community. The math of how all that work is supported is really important, but it's just the beginning of the story of Metro and our collective contribution to community. Next slide, please. And do we have the slides up for the audience? I think there we go. Thank you. So today we're going to do a little review of our budget process. We're going to hit the highlights of the budget message. Brian's going to talk about our budget environment and significant changes to the budget. Our auditor, who independently proposes a budget to you, will give a presentation, and then we'll talk about next steps and have our first public hearing. Next slide. The proposed budget here before you today is the result of 5 months of hard work and difficult conversations with our directors, our finance team, the executive team, and with council. While we are presenting the proposed budget to you for the first time today, there are a number of steps between this proposal and adoption. The proposed budget will return to council on May 1st for approval, and the approved budget will go before the Tax Supervising and Conservation Commission on May 29th, before returning to council for a final time on June 12th for adoption. Throughout this time frame, council will have budget work sessions for deliberation and additional public hearings, and then the adopted budget will take effect on July 1st, 2025. Our presentation today will summarize the proposed budget at a high level, but I encourage council, staff, and members of the public who are seeking a more in-depth executive summary to take a look through my budget message on the Metro website. It includes key trends that uniquely impact Metro and explains why, for different reasons, so many of our departments need to contract this year. My team and I have done our best to maintain Metro's values through the crafting of the proposed budget, a task made more challenging as the financial outlook in some areas has significantly worsened since the fall forecast. Cost inflation related to PERS and other escalating staff wages and fringe, materials and services drove departmental deficits wider. Additionally, many of the models Metro has depended on to fund operations have experienced and will unfortunately continue to experience material disruptions. For example, revenue from live performances, conventions, and trade shows has not returned to pre-pandemic levels, but our costs have kept pace with inflation. In recent months, new threats to federal funding have emerged, introducing uncertainty into previously dependable revenue streams. In the last few weeks, it has become clear that higher tariffs and a possible trade war may further increase inflation and instability. Collectively, these factors signal a need for a significant reset and approach to our ongoing service provision and a precautionary approach to our spending. Where revenue was available, I tried to shore up core services and functions, including backfilling some positions in parks with general fund that would otherwise have been cut to close their gap. The proposed budget shrinks our administrative costs and funds necessary new capacity by reallocating funds within constraint. In venues, we are consolidating teams across buildings to leverage expertise and continue to provide excellent service to our clients. The budget also spends one-time-only funding on one-time-only expenses and includes additional reserves to hedge against volatility in the economy. Next slide. We used a number of approaches in the proposed budget to meet the challenges and opportunities this year. A significant percentage of our costs at Metro are personnel costs, so naturally, when we need to rein in spending, it will impact our workforce. But this budget also trims spending in materials and services. Part of our approach to the budget was looking at our capacity, our organizational structure, and our spans of control. Of the positions that we proposed to cut, over 50% are supervisor and management positions. It was important to us to make sure that our management and leadership structure was as efficient as possible to relieve the pressure on frontline staff cuts that face the community. Where outside forces are challenging our operational models, we can't cut our way to new models. We need to invest in pivots, whether that is out at Expo with a move towards sports, or internally by modernizing our technology systems to take advantage of better functionality that our peers are already enjoying. You'll see new investments reflected in the proposal. Lastly, this year we had several requests for more administrative support, which was challenging to support in a constrained environment. So rather than fund multiple new admin positions, our solution was to pull together and augment existing capacity to create a small hub to support multiple offices and departments. Next slide. Metro's different funding streams resulted in an uneven distribution of FTE cuts and additions. This year, the Oregon Zoo, Housing, and Waste Prevention and Environmental Services departments submitted balanced budgets reflective of relatively steady revenue streams without the financial need for reductions. On the other end of the spectrum, and due to different drivers, P5, OCC, Expo Center, Parks and Nature, and Planning, Research and Development submitted budget reductions to bring their budgets into balance. For example, Parks and Nature forecasted a $4.5 million deficit in the absence of changes. But due to its revenue streams, bond funds, which can only be spent towards specific bond outcomes, levy funds, which must meet a 40% threshold for habitat restoration, and limited general fund, proposed reductions fell disproportionately on operating levy-funded positions and programs not tied to habitat restoration. Venues faced a different challenge, as staff reductions can impact Metro's ability to meet client expectations and therefore negatively impact future bookings. As a result, the budget before you eliminates positions at P5, Expo, and OCC, but also includes restructuring and collaboration across venues for services such as sales, event management, parking, ticketing, and public safety to increase efficiency and better leverage scarce resources. At venues, sales revenue is the other side of the equation, so the proposed budget includes $2 million in one-time only capital funds to invest in the initial equipment and infrastructure to pivot the existing expo halls to support local residents' use and sports tourism. To reduce administrative costs and provide relief to departments facing reductions, I asked our centralized administrative departments to propose 10% contraction packages for consideration. These services include human resources, finance, information technology, diversity, equity, and inclusion, capital asset management, communications, and counsel, including the Office of the COO and Government Affairs. These are all funded by charges to external departments by cost allocation methodology. And Metro has worked hard over the last several years to right-size many of our internal service departments to meet demand and expectations of quality. So I did not request or consider these contraction packages lightly, but felt they were necessary to alleviate pressure on external services. The proposed budget before you reflects reductions to positions and expenses in the council, HR, finance, DEI, capital assets management, and communications departments. These contractions allow Metro to maintain core administrative support to departments while also continuing to fund critical investments in employee safety and IT infrastructure, which cannot be delayed without significant risk and expense. Next slide. This slide is really just a compilation of different projects that are funded by federal funding. As the region's federally designated metropolitan planning organization, our transportation and land use work is intrinsically linked to the federal government. Changes to federal transportation funding or policy direction inevitably impact our planning, development, and research department. However, as we stand here today, the impact to these, or the potential impact, remains very unpredictable. As of today, we have not experienced changes to our existing federal transportation funding, but this list demonstrates kind of the universe of vulnerability for Metro and our regional partners if federal funding is pulled back or frozen or changed. Next slide, please. First, I want to state clearly that Metro continues to operate lawfully within the framework of the Council's adopted strategic plan to advance racial equity, diversity, and inclusion, full stop. Early in my career, I was part of the blossoming of the groundswell toward governing toward racial equity. The movement started because people inside and outside government realized that some communities had been excluded from access to government services, opportunity, you name it, by institutional decisions. The movement sought to make sure that future decisions were inclusive and did not create new barriers. It also sought to identify and break down existing barriers to marginalized communities and identities. DEI has always been about creating more access, more opportunities, and not less. As you will see in the department presentations, we continue to utilize the budget equity tool and associated equity metrics to ensure that departments remain accountable to Metro's equity goals in the racial equity framework. This tool allows us to track progress year over year and helps communicate Metro's efforts and equity investments to council and our community. Although the proposed budget contains a number of contractions, our commitment to racial equity remains in our investments and priorities. This includes a new investment of $250,000 for work with our DEI department to help scope and deliver new racial equity trainings for leadership, specifically on targeted universalism, which I believe provides a strategic communications and legal framework to advance racial equity in public service. I'll now hand over the mic to our Chief Financial Officer, Brian Kennedy, to take us through the next few slides.
Thank you, Marisa. My name is Brian Kennedy. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for Metro. I'm going to start by talking through a little bit of our budget environment. Marisa went through this at a high level, but I think it's important to emphasize these points because these are some of the main drivers for Metro's budget. In terms of headwinds, the things that are putting stress on the organization, PERS employer rates are significant. This is an issue virtually every local government in the state is dealing with. We saw a significant increase in our PERS employer rates for the next biennium, about 5% of payroll. That's significant, and we expect a similar increase in the biennium beyond the next one. Inflation and interest rates continue to be a challenge. Inflation, while it has cooled, has not dropped down to expect the Fed's target rate of around 2%. We're a little bit elevated, and as Marisa noted, some of the federal actions threaten to push that higher. Interest rates are also significantly higher. Just a little point of reference, we closed our last bond sale this week. $200 million in general obligation bonds. We sold $200 million in May of 2020 as well, and our total interest cost for that was about 2.2%. Interest rate on the current bond sale was 3.8%. Still excellent rates, but obviously we're operating in a very different environment than we were 5 years ago. And again, those federal funding streams provide significant uncertainty for Metro, and given that they're a really important part of the planning department's budget and have some impacts in other parts of the agency as well. The news is not all bad. On the tailwind side, voter support for Metro programs continues to be significant. We're ramping up the Zoo Bond program this year. We continue to make significant investments in the region through the Parks and Nature 2019 bond and the Affordable Housing Bond. And overall, Metro's financial condition is very stable. We have some challenges in some departments, but our general financial condition is in good shape. And I think an important note on that is Moody's recently reaffirmed Metro's AAA bond rating. So we are doing a lot of things right, and part of that keeping and retaining that AAA bond rating is strong management led by financial policies that the council adopts every year, that when we face financial distress, we take action, we respond, and make changes to ensure that we are able to continue operating in a sustainable way. Next slide, please. I started showing this chart last year. This is looking at our financial reserves across our major departments. On the operating side, we have more green than we had last year. That's good news. We do have some challenge areas. The Expo Center continues to be in a very challenging financial position. Without general fund support, we would be looking at almost no operating reserves going into next fiscal year. Portland 5 similarly continues to be in a challenging financial situation. But otherwise, we're in relatively good shape. We are able to stabilize our reserves. Parks and Nature, for example, through the actions included in the proposed budget, we're on a trajectory to have stable operating reserves for the Parks and Nature Operating Fund. On the capital side, the theme is yellow. Again, this is pretty consistent across most local governments in the United States. We don't have enough money to fund our capital needs, both deferred maintenance and expansions in systems. Expo and Portland 5, again, are in a very challenging position. We don't have the money we need to make investments in those aging facilities. One bright spot in this is you'll notice the Oregon Zoo on capital is green. This isn't a reflection that the zoo has every dollar they need to fund everything into the future. But between the zoo bond and the revenues that they have been able to move to their capital fund, they're in a very good position. They have significant resources to address deferred maintenance and are embarking on a $380 million program to help remake a significant portion of the campus. So I think that's a good news. We need to take a moment to recognize those positive steps. Next slide. In terms of significant changes to the budget, as Marisa noted, we have reductions in Metro's visitor venues. We have smaller reductions and realignments in central services. And there are also new investments, continued investments in Metro's financial and human resources systems. These are systems that are essential to improving the efficiency and effectiveness of our central operations, and moving forward on that project is really essential. And then again, we have ramping up in the Zoo Bond program, and also the recently approved WPES System Facilities Plan implementation. We have some new investments related to that. Next slide, please. The budget by fund, these numbers are small, but a couple key takeaways. When you look at the bottom line, the total all funds, last fiscal year, the total budget was about 2.3 million. For fiscal 25-26, it's about 1.8 billion. That's a significant decrease, but that decrease is mostly related to planned spend down of carry forward funds. Some of that is in supportive housing services, the affordable housing bond, parks and nature bond. So while there are reductions to Metro's operating departments, particularly the venues and central services, most of that reduction that you see in that chart is not related to those budget reductions. It's changes in these large fund balances. When you look at the funds up and down on the right side, where that percent change column is, you'll notice most of those are red. Most of those funds are smaller next year than they are in the current year, and some of that is related to those operating challenges we talked about previously, but also planned spend down in those fund balances. Next slide, please. This chart, budgetary comparison, and I want to focus on the big pieces of the chart. So if you look at the left, these are our current expenditures. This is money that we actually plan on spending in the current year. And the orange Pac-Man there is our materials and services. That's $900 million. Most of that is money that Metro is not going to be spending directly. We are moving it to partners through the Affordable Housing Bond, through SHS program, local share grants, and then contracts with our operators at transfer stations. So the biggest portion of Metro's current spending is not actually spent by Metro itself. It moves out to the community and is expended in different ways. That's a really essential support that goes to our partners to deliver key investments across the region. The dark blue section of that, our personal services budget, is about 200 million. So of that kind of 1.3, 1.4 billion of current expenses, only about 200 million of that is personal services. So comparatively, a relatively small portion of our budget is Metro staff. Most of the resources that Metro generates and goes into the community are expended by our partners. The chart on the right shows our total budgets by departments. A couple things to note. The large blue, light blue section of the chart, that's our housing fund, our housing department. So the Affordable Housing Bond, SHS. If you looked at this chart 10 years ago, that department would not exist. So Metro has taken on a significant new body of work, and it's now, in terms of dollars, bigger than anything else we do. And then in the top left part of that chart, the dark purple, that's our contingency and reserves. Those are capital balances, reserve balances that we are carrying year to year, money that we don't expect to spend. So of our $1.8 billion budget, a significant portion of that is reserves. I think it's a useful thing to think about in terms of kind of what are the dollars that we expect to spend next year versus what is in that we have to appropriate in the budget. Next slide, please. This shows our 10-year expenditure history. I think it may be more than 10 years now. I left some of the trailing years on because it's a useful comparison. You'll notice relatively stable expenditures starting in 2016-17 and then ramping up around 2020, 2021. That's when you started to see the impact of the Affordable Housing Bond, the Parks and Nature Bond, and the SHS program. So those blue bars are current expenditures, the red bars are transfers, green bars are contingency. You'll notice the big jump in 24-25 and 25-26, and again, those are budgeted numbers, not actuals. And one of the things we try to do is make sure that we have a budget authority to expend funds if programs move more quickly than we anticipate. The black line shows our fund balances. You see that number jump up significantly in 2018, 2019. That was the Affordable Housing Bond proceeds. Then we sold the first tranche of Parks and Nature bonds. And then you'll notice that line dip down pretty dramatically in 24, 25, 25, 26. Again, that's a budgetary kind of projection if we were to spend all the money we had in our budget. We know that we won't actually spend that, but we want to have the flexibility in case those projects move more quickly than we anticipate. Next slide, please. Agency FTE history. This is goes back to 2014-15. You'll notice the overall, if you put a trend line on this, upward growth of FTE. And again, that's a reflection of programs that Metro has been asked to deliver. The 2019 Parks and Nature Bond, the Affordable Housing Bond, SHS, new obligations in WPES. There are some years where we have reductions, 2021, and then again in 25, 26. And I think remember that our overall personal services, represent 200 million of a $1.8 billion budget. But there hasn't, so the obligations and expectations on Metro in terms of budget have increased significantly, but our staffing patterns have not changed as dramatically. It's been a slower increase with readjustments when necessary. Next slide, please. This chart shows our debt service obligations out through fiscal year 35. Metro, as of today, with the closure of the most recent bond sale, we're back to about $1 billion in outstanding general obligation debt supported by the voters. While that is a very large number, it is a very small percentage of the authorized debt that Metro could have under our statutory limitation, and this chart shows that decrease over time. The important thing to note here is this does not include future issuances. We have outstanding authorizations for the Parks and Nature Bond as well as for the Zoo Bond. But you can see a steady pattern of decreases in that outstanding debt over time that you would expect. Next slide, please. The property tax levy, this is one of the most important things that the council does as part of approving and adopting the budget. There are actually 3 separate actions. The first is adopting or setting Metro's permanent rate, which is unchanged at 9.66 cents per thousand. This is the permanent rate. Setting the Parks and Nature local option levy rate, again, 9.6 cents per thousand of assessed value. And then finally setting the debt service levy. In last fiscal year, or in the current fiscal year, 24-25, we estimated that at 39 cents per thousand. For the next fiscal year, we're estimating it at 40 cents per thousand. Our commitments to voters has been keeping that combined debt service levy at or below 40 cents per thousand, so we're right on track there. And we expect that to be stable over time. So again, this is one of the most important actions council takes in addition to setting appropriations. Next slide, please. And this is where we turn it over to Auditor Evans.
Great. Thank you, Brian.
Good morning.
Good morning, Council President Peterson, councilors. Thanks for the opportunity to present my budget to you today. As a reminder, as COO Madrigal mentioned, the Metro Code has a slightly separate process for my office to submit its budget directly to you all, separately from the rest of the budget. This is just a way to kind of signal independence from the folks that we audit to make budget decisions for the office. Next slide, please. Quick reminder before I talk about the budget numbers of our mission, which is to ensure Metro is accountable to the public, that its activities are transparent, and we're hoping to improve the efficiency, effectiveness, and quality of Metro services and activities. We do that primarily through performance audits. Next slide, please. Quick run through of accomplishments. As of the end of last month, we had completed 2 audits. We've actually completed a 3rd now, which was published yesterday. There's a pretty significant increase in the number of reports to the accountability hotline, so that's been taking a little bit more time, and credit to HR for taking on a lot of those. And then we also awarded a new contract for the financial services audit that's held every year. That was through a competitive RFP process. Next slide, please. This is a reminder of the audits we've completed. So performance measures we published in September and presented to you late last year, as well as the span of control audit last year. And then there's FOTA audit, which was published yesterday. Next slide, please. So getting into our actual budget, we are almost entirely personnel services. So that is 7 FTE, myself, an administrative assistant, and 5 staff auditors. We also have some of our budget reserved for materials and services. We often do not spend our materials and services budget, but it's really helpful to have that money available in case an issue arises that we need outside expertise or something complicated comes up that we need to respond to quickly. Next slide, please. These are the numbers behind that pie chart. So we're just a little bit over $1 million per year, again, showing mostly personnel services, and then that materials and service line item, as you can see, the actual number on the left is pretty reflective of what we actually spend, which is about 1/3 of our materials and services budget on a given year. So most years we're putting a little bit of money back into the general fund that we don't spend. Next slide, please. Looking forward, we have now 3 audits underway. Photo was published yesterday. The next audit that you'll see us publish is a follow-up on a research center audit that we did a couple years ago. We also have an audit looking at information technology, which is specific focus on cybersecurity. And then we're starting a new, what I hope will be an every other year audit, standard audit that's kind of looking at transparency and accountability in the governance structure. So that's things like number of public records requests, the number of public meetings, who's lobbying Metro, and kind of who Metro does business through contracts and procurement. Next slide. Happy to answer any questions. I also wanted to mention, we do have 2 audits on our current schedule that haven't started that are likely to start in the next month or so. One looking at SHS, that'll be our 3rd performance audit of that program. And we also will have an audit starting in the near future to look at the Oregon Zoo Bond implementation that was approved by voters last year. And would encourage anybody who's interested in SHS audits to please contact me directly if you have questions. There's been a lot of discussion in the President's work group around SHS. Have had very little outreach, direct outreach from folks talking about audits, and would really appreciate the opportunity to have some input on that. Thanks.
Thanks. Metro Council Auditor Brian Evans. I just thought I'd put the whole thing out there. Metro Auditor.
I feel very official.
The transparency and accountability, and you talked about procurement, is that for advertising? Like, what is the perspective, what's the lens on that? I just
Happy to discuss that.
seemed out of
It
place.
is the first time, so it's a little bit of a work in progress in terms of what will end up in the final report. Right now, I'm trying to go through the quality control process and make sure the data that I propose to publish is accurate and reliable. Really, the way I'm thinking about that is kind of a who does business with Metro, kind of a top 10 list is kind of the way I'm thinking about it. The state of Oregon publishes all its contracts online, and so I was thinking maybe dipping the toe in a little bit for Metro to just kind of show the public who is the most frequent business partner with Metro. Potentially will also include some looks at metrics that you could use to kind of get a sense of how variable the contract award process is. So looking at things like special procurement memos as a percentage of the total contracts award to kind of give you a sense of like, are things proceeding in kind of the normal way, or there's a lot of outliers that, if there's a lot of outliers, that might be a place to double check and see what's causing those trends. So really more looking at the trend than anything specific in terms of significant weaknesses. So analogy I've been using is the financial condition report. That's a report that we do every other year that looks at trends in financial condition. And so it's really kind of trying to present the data in a longer time frame.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question? Sorry.
Yeah, it just seemed out of place with the other things, and so I think there's a distinct difference between that and access to information that Metro is providing in decision-making, which seems the other category in the things that you listed off. So if there's an angle on who has access to the information for procurement, that would be another way to look at it, because I think we've been striving to make it more known, and how we could do even better. I think that would be a good question, is does everybody know that they have these opportunities to bid on things at Metro?
Thanks for that suggestion. Yeah, that's exactly in the intent of this audit, is to try to think about things that might help give the public a better sense of Metro's work and kind of how to engage with it.
Thank you. Councilors, any questions of the auditor? All right, thank you.
Who's next?
Okay, we're just gonna wrap up with some next steps. So we're just gonna go over some of our upcoming, I'll wait until things come back magically, thank you. Look over some upcoming public hearings. We've got them scheduled April 22nd, May 8th, May 22nd. As I mentioned earlier, the 29th is our Tax Supervising Conservation Committee hearing, or Tax Soup, as we gently call it. And then June 3rd as well. Next slide, please. And then the budget amendment timeline. So May 23rd is when amendments to the approved budget and budget notes are due. June 3rd, we are holding time for budget amendment and budget note deliberation. June 5th is council consideration of amendments and budget notes. And then the last slide, we're almost done here. And just again, those key adoption milestones, budget approval is May 1st, which specifies the rate of each tax levy. Again, the TSCC hearing, and then adoption is scheduled for June 12th, which will set the appropriations and imposes and categorizes taxes. That is the end of our intro presentation, the first of many times we'll be talking about this, but happy to answer any questions that you have. Brian Kennedy is here as well.
Councilors, any questions for staff at this time before we move on to the public hearing? Councilor Huang, and then Councilor Lewis.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Marisa, and all the staff for the hard work in putting together that proposed budget. I had a question just on some of the slides around contingency and how we think about it in the role of the contingency. There was one slide that for the expenditures where in the bar graph, and it might be easier to pull it up, but there was a green block for each contingency, but I noticed that the green blocks were only for this fiscal year and next fiscal year. So are we thinking about contingency differently? It's just how it was portrayed?
Councilor Wong, that's a great question. That slide, the prior years are actuals. So we don't spend contingencies typically in those years. And when those funds are spent, a budget action has to take place where the contingency is moved to something else, to personnel, to capital, to transfers. So in the prior years, there's no actual data related to contingency. Contingency and unappropriated ending fund balance, kind of the two ways that we can reserve money in the budget, really only show up as budgeted amounts. So the last 2 years in that chart are showing the current year amended budget and then next year's proposed budget at this stage.
Okay.
And so maybe one last piece of explanation. So you see that black line, and where there's a significant gap between the blue bar and the red bar, that is the cash that in those years would have been budgeted as contingency and reserves. But because we're talking about actuals, it shows up as ending fund balance.
Got it. Okay. And then I guess kind of just overall in this fiscal year, upcoming fiscal year, are we intentionally rebuilding some of our reserves in contingency, or is this like we're continuing to spend down, I guess, from reserves?
In most cases, we have a policy target for our general fund, 16.5%. We have more specific targets for our other enterprise funds. So we're trying to kind of budget those operating reserves at the policy level targets. And then Marisa in the proposed budget has set aside some additional reserves related to federal uncertainty and other uncertainty in the budget. So it's really a combination of hitting our policy targets for those operating reserves, as well as setting aside some additional money given the significant amount of uncertainty we have in the economy right now.
Okay, that seems prudent. So I understood, like, in the last few years in some of our departments, we've been spending contingencies, so this budget is kind of replenishing those in those departments?
We haven't been spending contingencies for the most part. Parks and Nature had a little bit of a spend down. They also had significant operating reserves. The bigger trend is if you think about the affordable housing bond, for example, we sold all of those bonds up front. We had $652.8 million come in, and we have been spending that money down over time. Significantly, we sell bonds, we have a big cash infusion, and then we spend that money down. So the big change in the budget going from that 2.3 billion to 1.8 billion is really those programs where the money comes in up front and we spend it down. We are seeing the planned spend down of those cash balances.
Great. Thanks for the explanation.
We also put, I think you're thinking in the past with WPAS, in order to be able to keep the rates down, we did use some contingency.
Yes, we did spend some contingency in WPAS as well.
Thank you.
I thought we also used contingency in P5 for,
Yes, and for capital projects in particular.
and are those being replenished for P5?
No, if you think about the financial reserve chart, P5 is red. That operation is not generating. There are two things going on. Number one, as Marisa mentioned, attendance and revenues haven't returned to pre-pandemic levels, so we're not generating the net revenue to start replenishing those capital reserves. Another primary source of capital funding for P5, Expo, and OCC has been transient lodging tax turnover from Multnomah County. And transient lodging tax is stagnant, actually went down last year over the prior year, and we are still not back to pre-pandemic levels. So between those two trends, we're not generating additional net revenue to recapitalize that reserve fund.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Lewis.
Two questions. The first, picking up from the current thread. Looking at the stoplight chart, obviously there's red on capital for P5. Those are not our buildings. What is our IGA agreement on City of Portland money versus Metro money into that capital reserve? I say this in context that we spent $7 million of operating fund on a roof. So that's not operations.
I will let the Metro Attorney talk about the IGA. I think the important thing to take away is the P5 fund, that is all Portland money. That is a self-contained fund. If P5 went back to the city today, whatever reserves are in that fund would go back to the city as well. Other than some support for administrative costs during the pandemic, there's no Metro money that has gone into P5 over time. So from the kind of purely financial policy perspective, if there were a need for significant additional capital investment in a urgent or emergency manner, that would need to be a conversation with the city about how to capitalize the budget in order to make those investments.
So I kind of hear that red light is on there and we should be aware of it, but it's not our liability.
That would be my view, yes.
I think, if I may, Councilor Lewis, I think what the additional layer there is, because anything that we generate in P5 above what we need to operate, and that, you know, what falls into that ending fund balance or reserve, because it tends to have to go to the buildings, we don't have any additional funding to work with arts organizations, subsidize rents, you know, otherwise, you know, help support that ecosystem. It's all going to the buildings. So one thing also to remember about, you know, most of our contingencies and reserve funds are that they're restricted. So we raise them in the funds and they stay in the funds. And so there's different drivers that can impact them in different ways.
Thank you. Second question, we saw the bar chart of our debt, and obviously the focus of the narrative was on the navy blue and general obligation bond. GO debt, I've heard likened to avocados in that it's a healthy debt, and like avocado is a healthy fat. But can you speak a little bit to the non-GO bond debt? That's the small gray at the top. What kind of debt is it? And might it be healthy or not?
The debt that Metro has that is not general obligation debt falls into two categories. One is full faith and credit obligations that were issued for this building. It's a relatively small amount of money. I think the original principal was 15 million. That has been expended and that will be paid down over time. The other portion is the OCC hotel bonds that are backed by they have two revenue pledges. The first is transient lodging tax through the Visitor Facilities IGA, and then the second pledge is also transient lodging tax through the Excise Tax Fund. This is not the solid waste excise tax. This is Multnomah County Transient Lodging Excise Tax Fund. So those are the two revenue pledges. There are no other Metro revenues pledged for repayment of that debt. So I think similar to GO debt, it has a separate revenue pledge, and the primary, the VFIGA, has significant reserves, and it's our expectation that there is no challenge on the Visitor Facilities Trust account being able to make those debt service payments over time.
Wonderful, thank you.
Counselors, any other questions to staff before moving to the public hearing? Seeing no hands raised.
I'll raise my hand.
Oh, Counselor
Sorry,
Gonzalez.
thanks. Yeah, and I was just, thank you, Brian and team. I've been thinking about some comments that I want to make, just briefly highlighting some of the work that Councilor Wong and I have been doing over the last few months, doing community listening sessions, specifically with community partners, community organizations, in response to the administration and federal uncertainty. And so I know that from the slide, we highlighted quite a bit of that federal uncertainty. And I want to thank Marisa and you, Brian, and the rest of the team for working to incorporate a lot of that feedback, which is telling us maintaining our continued investment directly into our communities where possible. And I know that we're going to have a few full-day budget work sessions where we're going to have the opportunity to understand a little bit more what some of those nuances are in planning for the future. But before we enter the public hearing, I do want to acknowledge that it's been a really driving force for the council to take that into consideration. And if there are any community partners listening, and obviously to many of the of our attendees and guests in the room, that Metro and all of our local governments are trying to manage that level of uncertainty. And there's even some things beyond that whether it's tariffs or whatever, that impact our local economy, and the ability of our region to position itself strongly and for the next few decades is something that is just very top of mind. So anyway, I just wanted to put that there, and the level of intentionality that we're trying to approach that work with. So Brian, I'm not sure if there's anything you want to there's not a question there, but I think it's important to highlight that, and look forward to the additional work.
Great, thank you. With that, thank you so much for the presentation, and we will now move into public hearing on the proposed budget and resolution number 25-5482. Georgia, will you please describe to the audience our procedures for the public hearing?
If anyone wishes to testify on if anyone wishes to testify on resolution number 25-5482, now is the time to do so. Public testimony will be limited to 3 minutes. I will manage a timer to go off at the 3-minute mark. If you have not already signed up to speak, you can do so now. You can sign up to testify by raising your hand on Zoom. Depending on your version of Zoom, the raise hand function has its own tab or is located within the reactions tab. Those calling in can raise their hands by dialing *9. I'll promote you to a full panelist when it is your turn to testify. I will call on your name or phone number when it is your turn to testify, and a window will appear asking you to accept being promoted to a panelist. Once you click accept, your Zoom window will close for just a brief moment before you rejoin as a panelist, where you will be able to turn on your camera if you like. As a reminder, you do not need to give your physical address. However, please introduce yourself for the record before testifying. And Council President Peterson, I have not received any blue cards at this time for this agenda item. And I also am not seeing any hands raised. We can give it a moment.
Okay, thanks. Seeing no
Okay.
one running forward and no hands raised, I will close this public hearing. Metro Council will hold additional public hearings on the budget prior to adoption. The next public hearing will be on Thursday, May 8th, 2025. Metro Council will consider approving the fiscal year 2025-26 budget on Thursday, May 1st, 2025. The approved budget will be sent to the Tax Supervising and Conservation Commission for review. The TSCC hearing on Metro's budget is scheduled for May 29th, 2025 at 11 a.m. No further action on the budget will be taken at this meeting, and the Budget Committee will meet next on Tuesday, April 15th, 2025, and will remain open till the budget is approved. We will be moving now as Metro Council onto the ordinance, second reading and vote of ordinance number 25-1529 for the purpose of annexing to the Metro District boundary approximately 13.92 acres located in Wilsonville along Southwest Frog Pond Lane. We held a first reading and public hearing on March 27th, Council, and heard testimony from one person in support. Glenn Hamburg, our Senior Regional Planner, is here to answer any questions you may have. Do you have any questions, councilors? City of Wilsonville has been busy. This is one of many we've been hearing. Seeing no hands raised from the council on any questions, I will call for a motion on ordinance number 25-1529.
I move adoption of the ordinance.
I'll second that.
It's been moved by Councilor Rosenthal and seconded by Councilor Gonzalez. Any further discussion? Georgia, will you please call the roll?
Counselor Nolan,
Yes.
Counselor Rosenthal,
Aye.
Counselor Gonzalez,
Aye.
Counselor Wong,
Aye.
Counselor Lewis,
Aye.
Council President Peterson.
Aye, the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right. Thank you, Glenn. We will move on to ordinance number 25-1530 for the purpose of amending Metro Code Section 11.01.130 Administrative Cost Recovery concerning use of administrative funds and declaring an emergency. Councilors, we held a first reading and public hearing for this ordinance on March 4th, 2025, and received no testimony. Today, we will hear a brief staff presentation on the ordinance, received public comment, and consider a proposed amendment. We will not take final action today. Council consideration is scheduled for April 17th, 2025. Before we turn to the staff presentation, I would like to reiterate what I shared at the first reading of this ordinance last month. There is significant need across our region for supportive housing services. Meanwhile, SHS funds are limited. We face a worsening affordable housing and homelessness crisis, and economic and financial uncertainty grows starker by the day. This council is committed to supporting our partners in the region through our role providing accountability and oversight of the supportive housing service funds. We can strengthen our SHS system by creating new opportunities for one-time use funds that fill service gaps and are cognizant of the unique needs of each of the 3 counties in our region. I want to thank our partners in county and city government, in the business community, and the nonprofits who provide these services for the feedback they have shared since this ordinance was first introduced. In response to that feedback, we have prepared an amendment to specify how Metro can work with our existing local implementation partners to better meet our shared goals. Before we discuss any changes to the ordinance, we will begin with the staff presentation and public hearing. We have Kristen Dennis, our Chief of Staff to the Metro Council, here to give a brief presentation and answer any questions.
Thank you, Council President Peterson. Council President, Metro Councilors, for the record again, my name is Kristen Dennis. I am the Chief of Staff to the Metro Council. I'm here today to present an ordinance that would amend Metro Code regarding the use of Metro's administrative funds. First, I'd like to give a little bit of background. In the first few years of the SHS program, the program received higher than anticipated revenue. This, combined with ramp up of the program, led us to where we are today, which is approximately with about approximately 30 million in carryover. We've been talking about these funds for more than a year, largely in the context of an extension and reforms to the SHS program, which could allow for SHS funding to support affordable housing and permanent supportive housing unit purchase and development. This council has discussed contributing those funds as seed money for an affordable housing fund available to our local implementation partners, the counties, upon passage of an updated SHS measure. More recently, however, the council received 2 specific requests for the use of these funds more immediately. The first was from Mayor Wilson of Portland, who came to a council meeting on February 4th and requested funds to support his mayor's plan to end unsheltered homelessness, including overnight shelter strategy. The second was from Multnomah County Chair Vega Peterson, who requested $30 million from Metro administrative funds to address a portion of their projected fiscal year 25-26 budget gap in a letter on February 21st. Subsequent to those two requests, and in recognition of the economic headwinds facing not only Multnomah County and the city of Portland, but to all of our local jurisdiction partners throughout the region, President Peterson and Metro councilors asked staff to propose a method for responding to these emerging local needs. Metro staff has been in conversations with our local implementation partners, the counties, about how we might be able to strategically leverage these one-time dollars in support of their local efforts. As we know from the first years of this program, surprising our county partners with surprise unplanned one-time funds can create significant challenges for them. So we have the code up in front of us. As you can see, current code allows Metro to retain up to 5% of the remaining funds to pay the cost to disperse the funds and administer and oversee the program. This obviously includes supporting the Regional Oversight Committee, establishing a homelessness data collection and reporting program, and supporting the Tri-County Regional, and supporting Tri-County Regional collaboration. So that's what's currently allowed in Metro Code. What we're proposing before you today is adding the second subsection B, which would allow Metro to provide funding to, this is the wrong one. Sorry, that is the old one. I'm sorry, Georgia, I gave you the wrong one. We have, let me pull up on mine. It would allow Metro to provide funding to local implementation partners in addition to their, which is outside of their normal allocations. And we should have copies of that. And the amended version is available online. I apologize, council.
You want me to? I can read it if you want.
Thank you. Just to the second part, that would be great, if you wouldn't mind.
So under 11.01.130, administrative cost recovery, use of administrative funds, section A is what it had been limited to, and the addition would be to B. In addition to the uses described in subsection A, Metro may also provide funding to a local implementation partner to support specific needs identified by Metro Council. Funding under the subsection is in addition to the allocation set forth in section 11.01.090. The Metro Council may establish the conditions under which a local implementation partner may receive and use funds under the subsection. Funds provided under the subsection must be used for supportive housing services, but are not otherwise subject to the requirements of this chapter unless required by Metro Council.
Thank you, President Peterson, for the assist. As you noted, the amendment that you saw up there, that is, you will be amending, specify local governments, and obviously, as President Peterson, you mentioned in your opening remarks, we had subsequently, you asked for an amendment to change that to make it specific to our local implementation partners. I want to note that Multnomah County and the City of Portland have been working together to address Mayor Wilson's specific ask, so there is no longer a need to make distributions directly to cities at this point. Staff is making this particular recommendation to amend the code in recognition of the fact that our county partners are in different situations, and partnership with each of them may mean that we need to be more flexible with allowable uses of administrative funds and on timing. And so that's why we are proposing this, and why we have been working with our local partners at the counties to figure out how we can best support them and be supportive partners. Should council adopt these changes next week, staff would continue to work collaboratively with our partners at the counties to determine the best way to support them in their work, and we will return with a resolution whereby we will return with resolutions whereby council would be able to make those distributions for the purpose and on a jointly agreed upon timeline. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to repeat that last part again, in terms of next steps, if this is to pass today, next week, we would finalize and then pass a resolution in order of the requests from Multnomah County and the mayor for their portion of this, because they have a plan, and then work with the other two counties on another resolution to be considered later based on what plan they want in order to use their proportion of the money.
President Peterson, that is correct. This enables Metro Council to take these actions at a future date. We could, as soon as we get direction, come back to council with a resolution for each of the specific counties. Obviously, Multnomah County has already identified some specific needs. We would also continue to work with the other local implementation partners, Washington and Clackamas counties, and have separate resolutions making the distributions to them as well.
Thank you. And just a quick question, in terms of preparation for today, I just want to underscore and understand the work that led up, working with our partners, the counties and the city of Portland, to understand why we needed to make this ordinance change and use this as a vehicle to get there.
That's correct. Oh, sorry.
What led up to this in terms of work with staff to staff with our partners?
So there have been frequent conversations, particularly with staff at all of the, with our local implementation partners at the counties, to figure out would additional funds, how might they be helpful? What is the timing that might actually be helpful? What are the specific needs that you all have? Again, we want this to be helpful, and they're all in current challenges with their budgets as well.
Thank you. Thanks for that recognition. All right, councilors, any questions for Kristen at this time? Councilor Rosenthal.
Yeah, just one question. We use the term local implementation partners. What part of the code is that specifically defined?
It's somewhere in section 11, chapter 11. I'm going to go look to Carrie for the assist. But it is specific to local implementation partners that have local implementation plans that have been approved by council and have gone through a pretty significant process in order to be local implementation partners. But Carrie.
Yeah, thank you. This is Carrie McLaren, Metro Attorney. Kristen Dennis is correct in terms of it. I will pull up the exact code site, but basically our code defines local implementation partners as those that have adopted a local implementation plan, and recognizes that our three current local implementation partners are the counties of Clackamas, Washington, and Multnomah County.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Any other questions? Okay.
No.
With that, today I am proposing an amendment to this ordinance, which has been distributed to you and is labeled version A, which I read. Version A builds on the changes to Metro Code proposed earlier this week, which are included in the packet posted publicly as Amendment 1. To clarify, version A presents the same changes to Metro Code as Amendment 1, but it also includes changes to the whereas clauses and findings in the ordinance to ensure accuracy and clarity. This amendment seeks to achieve two goals. First, to make clear that funds will be used for strategic one-time investments. Second, to limit recipients of these funds to our existing local implementation partners, Clackamas, Multnomah, and Washington counties, as so noted. I will entertain a motion on version A.
Oh, Madam President, was there a public hearing portion?
Did I skip that?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yes, I did skip over that. Apologies. Before we get to that, I just totally skipped over. Apologies. We will open up a public hearing on ordinance number 25-1530. Georgia, will you please describe the audience, our procedures for the public hearing?
If anyone wishes to testify on ordinance number 25-1530, now is the time to do so. Public testimony will be limited to 3 minutes. I'll manage a timer to go off at the 3-minute mark. If you have not already signed up to speak, you can do so now. You can sign up to testify by raising your hand on Zoom. Depending on your version of Zoom, the raise hand function has its own tab or is located within the reactions tab. Those calling in can raise their hands by dialing *9. I will promote you to a full panelist when it is your turn to testify. I will call on your name or phone number when it is your turn to testify, and a window will appear asking you to accept being promoted to a panelist. Once you click accept, your Zoom window will close for just a brief moment before you rejoin as a panelist, where you will be able to turn on your camera if you like. As a reminder, you do not need to give your physical address. However, please introduce yourself for the record before testifying. And Council President Peterson, we do have one person who has signed up to testify in advance, and that is Chair Catherine Harrington.
Please come forward. Thank you.
Good morning, Council President Peterson and members of the Metro Council. I'm Chair Catherine Harrington, here today to speak on behalf of the Washington County Board of Commissioners about our continued concerns with this proposed ordinance. I'm joined today by Commissioners Pam Treese, Commissioner Jason Snyder, and Commissioner Nafisa Faye. As you may recall, the Washington County Board of Commissioners provided your council with a letter expressing our board's concerns about the original proposed ordinance on March 18th. Since that time, we've not received a written response to those concerns, which is why I'm here in front of you today. I would like to note that we appreciate that the amendments plan to address one major concern of allocating funding to any local government and limit disbursement to local implementation partners, which are currently just counties. If you may already know in your code, local implementation partners are defined as a local government that receives program funds from Metro to implement SHS through an intergovernmental agreement, or IGA, generally, but not limited to, the 3 regional counties. This limit is important, but it's the partnership commitments in the IGA that continue to not be acknowledged in this resolution that leave us concerned. We recognize that right now, the ordinance is intended to address Metro's administrative and oversight funds that have been carried forward from year to year. The Metro Code and our IGA clearly state that if Metro does not retain the full 5% allowed for administration and oversight costs, that all the remaining funds will be allocated to the counties using the disbursements set out in the Metro Code and the IGAs between the counties and Metro. Neither governance document expressly discusses how the carry forward should be or could be distributed if Metro determines it no longer needs to hold previously collected revenue. We acknowledge that the IGA state that the Metro administrative funds cannot be used to provide SHS services, and it is your goal to not violate that prohibition. However, the IGAs and Metro Code do not consider distribution to counties as providing services. It is unclear what this ordinance does beyond what is already allowed. In addition, we understand that in this case, the intention is to provide funds to the counties reflective of the general revenue split. Based on the limited communication we've heard, it is not clear in the proposed ordinance. We ask that as you consider amendments, you add this intention for this or any future allocation for carry forward funding. Additionally, as partners in this work to implement SHS, our request is that moving forward, you can acknowledge and address written documents routinely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Auditor Brian Evans.
Thank you, councilors, for the opportunity to testify again. Another rare opportunity to testify in public on that ordinance, but I think it's important from the transparency angle that my office takes on. And just a quick note, I did testify at the initial hearing, so there was testimony. I hope that's reflected in the record. The current amendment, to my mind, does not address the process that the Chief of Staff outlined. So there's the difference between the First Amendment and this amendment is that there's no requirement for a resolution. So the who has the authority to make these decisions is undefined in the current resolution or in the current amendment, and the process or criteria is not clearly articulated to be something that would be a public document. So it's pretty hard to tell how these decisions would be made, and I don't think there would be any requirement to follow the process that was outlined. It does sound like a good process, but I would hope that we would put that in the actual code so that a future question, should a future council want to take up subsection B, would know what the process is. Right now, it sounds like management could make that decision unilaterally without council's decision, and if that's your intent, great, but I think it would be important to notify and have that spelled out specifically.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Carrie, do you want to address process and how we normally go about doing our business?
Metro Council President, yes, I can. I would recommend that you finish the public hearing, and then maybe I address that after the close of the public hearing.
Council President Peterson, I am not seeing any hands raised in the virtual audience, and I have not received any more blue cards.
Thank you. With that, I will close the public hearing and go back to the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President Peterson. I didn't realize we were so close to the end.
Yes.
I would acknowledge that there is this new resolution doesn't say that, or this new ordinance language doesn't say that it would need to happen by resolution, but I want to make clear that the body that is required to act is Metro Council. Metro Council has to act in open public session. It leaves the option open that vehicle could be an ordinance or a resolution, but that one of those two vehicles, one of those two would be how the council would enunciate either the specific needs that they were seeking to address or the conditions under which those funds would be released. So I hope that answers the question, that it would be in an open public process. The tool that Metro Council would use would be either a resolution or a subsequent ordinance to do that. I think likely a resolution, but it leaves that flexibility open to council for its action.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Councilors, any other questions?
President Peterson, if I might, we don't often, sometimes we specify exactly how council must act. Other places we don't, and we just make clear who the actor is in our code. So this is not inconsistent with other code drafting principles.
I appreciate that clarification. Councilors, any other questions? Councilor Gonzalez, you're thinking.
Yeah, I'm thinking here. First, I want to acknowledge the Washington County Board of Commissioners for coming today, for providing testimony, for sending a letter. And I think before we move forward, I really want to understand the core elements that came through the testimony. I think one was a request to respond in written format. I think the second is arguments around our code and how the money is distributed and allocated, and I might not be quite tracking specifically what the issue is, or if Chair Harrington, just to ask if you feel like the additional amendments that were released today kind of address the concerns of money going to the counties, or is there something that I might be missing? I would love to be able to engage on that, just so I understand specifically with the distribution, and then that will give me the opportunity to ask more questions and like due diligence.
Well, first, with the permission of the Metro Council President.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for coming forward.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Council President Peterson. Metro Councilors, Metro Gonzalez, for your question. First, the amendments that there is one amendment that's in your posted packet, and that one I understand. It refers to local implementation partners. Currently, your only local implementation partners are the 3 counties.
Correct.
But there's nothing that restricts you from adopting a local implementation plan with another party. Okay, so counties are never explicitly mentioned. So there's that. With regard to any other amendments, I double-checked your packet just now, and I am unable to locate those on your website through the packet. So respectfully, you do your work really well, transparently and publicly in meetings, and so I can't comment on those.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Respectfully.
No, of course, Chair. Thank you. I think that really helps.
Before we close
Of
out,
course.
though, while this specific proposed amendment does not specify the 3 counties, it is in other code, is what I heard Carrie say prior, that specifies the 3 counties.
Yeah, Council President Peterson, we use the term local implementation partner throughout our code. We do recognize in code section, I think it is, I didn't write down the entirety of it. So it's subsection 040 of the chapter that governs the supportive housing services, and I will get the exact quote, defines local implementation partner as those local governments that have gone through the process of adopting a local implementation plan that has been approved by Metro Council. And it acknowledges that presently our 3 local implementation partners are those 3 counties. So under this code, if I'm understanding the question correctly, under the code amendment that council is considering, it would be those 3 counties, Clackamas County, Washington County, and Multnomah County, that would be eligible to receive and request funds for specific, one-time purposes.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Anything else, Counselor?
No, thank you, Carrie. And I think, to the question, and I heard Councilor Rosenthal nod in agreement. That's a good point about, the Metro's potential interest to open an LIP with another government partner. I don't think that has been a topic of conversation. And also, I want to acknowledge that, we've had SHS roundtables and there's President's Work Group and things like that, right? And I don't believe that topic has surfaced there. But I really do want to acknowledge as well that one of the most important elements that to me stuck through the public comment from Chair Harrington and the Board of Commissioners is the importance of trust and partnership. And I just want to reflect that back, that you're absolutely right, that needs to be our top priority. And it is, I believe, our top priority, and we're working through a huge number of elements through formal actions on the dais, but also in work groups and our oversight committees. And so I appreciate that. And I think as well, there's a question that I think I'm reading between the lines as well about, if the money that at the point that the council determines that was administrative carryover is no longer determined to be needed for that purpose, why it wouldn't default be governed by the IGAs. I think that was a point. All right, great. I think that was the most pressing element. And I want to make sure that's acknowledged because there's a good faith conversation there. So, Carrie or Marisa, or, President Peterson, if we could just talk a little bit about why is it important for the Metro Council to want to retain this authority to deploy that money in this format. So again, and to Kristen, of course. So again, I just think it was a really important point, and I want us to make sure that I'm able to ask to understand that as well.
Thank you, Councilor Gonzalez. So you do have a few options. So Metro Council, I would think, and when I get a little bit out over my skis, and Carrie can always correct me in legal advice to you later, but we have not declared any amount like surplus. So theoretically, the way that Chair Harrington described it that's absolutely accurate. So if we said we no longer need those administrative funds, they'd be declared surplus, and it would just go through with the normal allocation. We have historically given the counties, forecasts, which fluctuate, but that is what they plan with. So the council would need to take, my guess is that council would need to take a specific action to declare some amount surplus, at which point you would all need to decide that you do not want to spend, there are no other administrative needs that you have at this point. And that is a question for Metro Council to determine. I'm not sure that staff is there yet. But given the economic headwinds that are facing that we discussed earlier, and council's interest in being responsive to current needs with our county partners, and also understanding that they're all in unique situations, that we might want to have flexibility to have specific partner conversations with each of them separately and have two separate agreements with all of them that are reflective of their specific needs. Obviously, Washington County is not Multnomah County, is not Clackamas County. And so, whereas if we did the normal process where we would kind of essentially declare surplus and have it flow through, that would be just treating them, that would that would be a different process. And we're looking to create some more flexibility, the ability to work in partnership and be a little bit more strategic around how these funds are available right now. And clearly they're unplanned funds for the counties because we had not, up until now, we have not been talking about releasing those yet.
Okay, thank you.
Councilors, Councilor Wong and then Councilor Lewis.
Thank you, Madam President. I think, for me, I'm always a fan of flexibility. And I think it's pretty clear right now in this moment that we don't have surplus in the system. So that is, I think a key point for me is every dollar is needed. I think it's our role and responsibility to allocate the dollars that we have to the most pressing need. And I think being able to condition and allocate money from this administrative pot to kind of the most impactful programs at this moment is a point of this enabling legislation. It gives us that flexibility to do that. So I see the merit in this proposal.
Councilor Lewis.
Sure, thank you so much. I really appreciate the discussion that's happening here on the kind of future state in which we will direct the funds. But the funds that we are speaking about, I want to understand them a little bit more because it is a unstable, unpredictable revenue source, and it's taken us 5 years to get here. You're not an economic forecaster, you're a recovering lawyer. But can you speak a little bit about the one-time nature of this? And in 5 years, will we have accumulated this sort of body of funds again? Or is this truly a one-off?
Thank you. Thank you for that question, Councilor Lewis. I cannot predict what the future holds, but these were some unprecedented times for us as we all witnessed like our county partners, we were building up a program. And so in our earlier years, we were not spending as much as we currently are because our needs were different. Additionally, revenue was coming in higher than anticipated. So it is, I would say, probably unlikely that we would have this amount of money in the future. And so I think your question might be getting to how often would we be able to actually utilize this section or a new section, subsection B. It might not be very likely. And so in the future, it might be much smaller amounts. And certainly 30 million is a significant amount. It's not a final amount because we do need to look and make sure council is comfortable with how much would be made available through this. But at that point, I'm not sure how often you will be able to have this size of an amount. And so therefore, you should consider that as we think through timing as well, whether you distribute all of it at once or whether it makes more sense to hold some of it back. And again, those are conversations we'll have with each of our county partners around the timing of that as well.
Thank you.
President Peterson.
Counselor. Thank you. Marisa, yes.
To just add on to augment that a little bit, I think we have concerns that the recent volatility that we've seen in the stock and the bond market over the last week could have some impacts down the road as, there's so much uncertainty down there. We already have a volatile revenue source. And so I just would support the council in making decisions that allow you to be cautious in the letting of these funds, because there is a lot that is just unknown about how recent shakeups will impact people's earnings and therefore the taxes that they pay on those earnings.
Thank you. Councilor Rosenthal?
Yeah, first of all, I want to echo and support the sentiment echoed or mentioned by Councilor Gonzalez regarding the need for trust and so forth. And second, I make a comment. It seems like we could do something in the code that makes it a little easier to understand. We've always had discussions over what is a local implementation partner, and I think that some clarification there would be helpful in the long run, but not really necessary at this point in time. I guess what my question, I'm still a little fuzzy on some of the reasons for the amendment and the reasons in opposition to the amendment. it would seem that we, under the original code we had, what we're saying is that the goal of the surplus funds were to be, or not surplus funds, but the administrative funds, were to be support tri-county regional collaboration. And what we're saying now is that, and as Councilor Wong mentioned, we have identified an area where specific needs would aid in that regional collaboration because it would reduce the level of perceived problem, and that we feel that we just need to tweak the language so that we can address that particular need.
Thank you for that question, Councilor Rosenthal. To the first on local implementation partners, again, we're trying to be consistent with what we have in code and frankly what we have in the IGA as well. We refer to local implementation partners in the IGAs as well. And then to your the second point around, sorry, I lost my train of thought. To your second, sorry, can you repeat the second?
Well, my second point was that the way I would read the original language is that we already had the authorization to support regional collaboration, and a determination that this regional collaboration was necessary could be seen, but that this amendment is really just to clarify the wording so that interpretation is a little easier to get to.
Thank you, Councilor Rosenthal, for the additional assist as well. So theoretically, yes, you could. I think what we were trying to do is err on the side of transparency and clarity. And so the words around regional collaboration or tri-county collaboration can be a little bit vague. So there may be work that, or a decision that we could do that would fit within that definition or within that word. It's not fully defined anywhere in code. But I think we're trying to be a little bit clearer and more deliberate with the amended language.
Thank you. Any other questions? I guess I just wanted to say thank you to both the county staff from all three counties, as well as our staff for working so hard over the last several weeks on this, and specifically Multnomah County Commissioners for clarifying their partnership at the joint office in order to get this first leg of work done. This council takes this responsibility of oversight very seriously, and I know that the counties have done yeoman's job in being able to get services out as fast as they did and build up an effectiveness in the program, and that we are all still striving to do better because we can't stop not wanting to strive to do better. And that there are a lot of lessons learned, and we're creating a program while we are implementing a program. And there is no perfect in this. We will continue to strive for perfect, and you know, there is no such thing. So I just want to say yet again, the moves that this council are taking are in partnership to be able to get more, but also to learn from the lessons of the past where we weren't clear in our role of oversight, and we weren't saying what we needed to expect based on what the public has been asking for and what audits have been asking for. So we're trying to meet everybody's expectation all at the same time and be more transparent, more clear, and meet higher goals for ourselves and this entire region. So I appreciate the work that we're all doing here today. I appreciate the fact that the county, Washington County Commissioners are here today, and the chair, your remarks. We will continue to work on the reform at the President's work group to put those lessons learned into practice as quickly as we possibly can. And what this does is, again, allow us to keep moving forward with implementation and make efforts on reform so that we are striving to get the most out of this program in the next 5 years. I think the hard part that we stand here in this moment today is that this money is needed. We need to know what it's going to be used for, because that is part of the lessons of the past, is that money has gone out without that conversation, and then information comes back. However, this program only has 5 years. So I'm very proud that this commission and our partners are looking to make changes and hopefully justify an extension. Otherwise, this program will need to be closed out. And I'm going to continue to repeat that in every setting. We will need to start asking for closeout plans very soon. That's why making sure that one-time only money is used for one-time only expenses going forward is incredibly important to this council, so that we aren't increasing the amount of money going out to programmatic at the same time that we're going to need to start winding the program down. It would be irresponsible of us not to make sure that that's not happening. So thank you, everyone. I will now ask for a motion on version A.
I move to amend ordinance number 25-1530 to replace the ordinance as introduced with version marked version A before you. The strikeouts show language to be removed and the underlined language to be added.
Thank you, Councilor Huang. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councilor Huang and seconded by Councilor Lewis. Any further question on version A? Seeing no hands raised. Georgia, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Counselor Nolan.
We're voting now on the amendment.
That's correct.
Yes? Yes.
Counselor Lewis.
Aye.
Counselor Wong.
Aye.
Counselor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Counselor Rosenthal.
Aye.
Council President Peterson.
Aye, the motion passes. Councilors, we will consider the full ordinance number 25-1530 as amended at our next business meeting scheduled for Thursday, April 17th, 2025 at 10:30 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Chief Operating Officer Communication, Marisa.
Thank you. Just a couple quick fun items for today. Wanted to flag that the next free parking day at Metro Parks is Thursday, April 17th. So if you need an excuse to get out to one of our beautiful parks, it's always a solid one. Also wanted to highlight a slightly different learning opportunity for folks. I love this one at Chehalem Ridge Nature Park this Saturday, April 19th. Our Parks and Nature team will be hosting 2 sessions of Pigmentos Naturales Azul Maya, or Natural Pigments Maya Blue, one at 10 a.m. and one at 1 p.m. Nice. This bilingual watercolor workshop will be held in English and Spanish and combines artistic techniques with profound connection to culture and land. Participants will explore sustainable and organic artistic practices to create vibrant colors from plants while nurturing an appreciation for Mother Earth. This is an easy, all-ages class that sounds like a great way to get creative and scratch that potion-making itch in kids and adults alike. Registration is $6, and you can find more information at oregonmetro.gov/events.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilors, Councilor Communication, if I may just take a moment, before calling on anybody with communications, I just want to acknowledge the crisis that we're in this region. We are mostly made up of small and medium-sized businesses, and they are being directly impacted by tariffs and tariff proposed or actually implemented. And Bike Portland just reported on one of our local companies. I believe they're actually out in Washington County, and that is both Showers Pass and V-Volt, owned by, Kyle Ranson. And he is saying that based on the tariffs, he doesn't know how long they'll be able to stay in business because $1 million shipment is waiting at a port in China. Normally would cost him $1.2 million to clear customs. It's now going to cost him $1.7 million. And he doesn't have the money to pay it, so he's holding it there until he can do that, and he's not able to fulfill his orders or potentially pay for staff. So while we have had some difficulties here in Metro, just like all of our local government partners, in terms of the economic situation, we are a region built on small and medium-sized businesses, and this is gonna hurt really bad. And I just wanna call out that my thoughts are with them, and all of the folks that work with them. And hopefully we can get through the next six months to a year with little to no impact, but I think that there's gonna be significant impact, so. I'm hoping that we can find ways to help them in the future, but for now, this is out of our control. But I just wanted to say, we're thinking of you and whatever we can do to help. Counselors, any updates? Counselor Lewis.
Sure, thank you. It is my monthly report from the Tri-County Planning Body. It was a great meeting. We had extended time because we've been so packed with our agendas. So we were able to make time for the Oversight Committee annual report. To do that, we had our co-chairs presenting. We also were able to dive deep into the Healthcare Alignment Implementation Plan. There are planks there that deal with discharge, with Medicaid dollar, and also with making sure that we are equipped not only with the data that we've been talking about, but bridging the two systems and the data. So we had an in-depth report on the work group that's been working on that plank, and we did Q&A. We had some really strong member communication from those involved working across both fields. And then finally, we were working through the final adoption of the RIF update, so spending the Regional Investment Fund into the next budget year. That's my update.
Thank you. Counselor Gonzalez.
Thanks, President Peterson. Two updates for me. First, yesterday was able to attend the Community Action Gala. Is an important partner out in Washington County, also is a major provider of SHS services in the community, and was a great event. Commissioner Fye was a MC and did a wonderful job. On Monday, we had the R1 Act, the Region 1 Act meeting, which as you know is ODOT Region 1's advisory group. We had some updates from the Urban Mobility Office, which involved a presentation from Director Tiffany Penson and Megan Channel as they shared the good news of Metro Council's approval on that project beginning to move forward. Talked about impact of tariffs and all that, and what we're facing. There was also an update on the I-205 bus on shoulder project that is underway. And the work that SMART, City of Wilsonville, Clackamas County are doing alongside ODOT to program transit in a way that's like relatively new to the region. It does exist on I-5 and south part of the region, but more transit coming to Clackamas County is always welcome. And then lastly, there was a presentation from Amanda Peets in ODOT. ODOT is rolling out a new capital investment plan approach, which basically gives them a 10-year horizon for project development and kind of moving through their constrained into work there. And I tried to provide some clear comments about the region's expectations around the MPO and specifically wanting to make sure that projects are developed, identified, planned, in collaboration with the MPO and with the region, so that when they make it to the MTIP, we agree that they're part of our regional transportation plan, a part of our priorities, and importantly, advance the goals of the RTP. Those comments were well received, and Amanda will hopefully be able to come to meet with some of the Metro staff and also with some Metro counselors to just talk more. In the spirit of partnership, continuing to develop that is important, especially through transportation lens and work. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? I think the one last thing I forgot to add when we were talking about the budget was that Medisa and I had a conversation this morning based on the fact that the federal request for the depackager out of WPES was not funded, that we would roll that into the conversation, into the budget, and probably get feedback from RWAC about whether that was a continued priority for the coming years based on what we want to do with rates and rate stabilization. So just a note for that. So thank you for agreeing to that. I forgot to bring it up with the budget. All right, with that, anything else? Yes, Counselor.
Have we done the testimony on the regional, communication on a regional refresh fund grants that are open? I can't remember if we've shared it, but. if you
That is a
wanna-
good question. I can reach out to WPES and see if that communication has gone out.
All right, sweet, thank you.
All right, with that, if there are no further comments from the council, we are adjourned. Our next regular scheduled meeting is Tuesday, April 15th, 2025 at 10:30 a.m. See you there.